Hey guys, it's Tracy. Welcome back to my channel. So today I am filming a book haul. I'm really hoping this setup works because I always struggle with lighting in this room, especially when it's winter. Also, Dad's listening to some concert thing out there and I'm worried that the audio is going to pick it up, so clearly I am in struggle town today, but we're just going to go ahead and do it. I've also literally forced myself to film this book haul so that I don't buy any more books for the rest of the month, and I'm really hoping the strategy works out because I've definitely bought more books than what I have read so far. I haven't read anything in about a week's time. Yeah. So let's start off with my trip to a local bookstore about a month ago, and I hadn't got into a bookstore or stepped foot into a bookstore up until that point, so it was really exciting. But as a result, I walked away with 3 books that I had never planned to buy in the first place, but we can ignore that. So the first one being The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. I have read another book from the same author already called A Face Like Glass. Absolutely loved that and loved the writing style. It was a middle grade fantasy novel. This kind of follows along the same line, except it is a YA genre instead. It does have a fantasy element to it, but it involves a family mystery as well, and the main character starts to unravel that family mystery. Like I said, loved the writing that Frances Hardinge brings to the table, which is probably why I picked this up more so than reading the plot. Next up is The Last Tutor by Philippa Gregory. I am an avid Philippa Gregory reader. I was going to say fan, but I actually have most, if not all, of her books. I would say this one here is part of the Tudor series, so it just follows along with the timeline of the Tudor courts and King Henry VIII's wives. Obviously, I know that this is historical fiction. It's not entirely accurate and it is very dramatized, but I like Philippa Gregory's writing, even though I know it's quite scandalous. Yeah, so that's why I picked this one up. I don't think it's a new edition though, but because I saw it in the bookstore, I got it anyways. And lastly is The Year the Maps Changed by Danielle. Binks. This is an Australian read set in Sorrento, which is a small beachside suburb. Or maybe not as small anymore, actually not quite far away from me. I love the place, it's a beautiful place, but this one is set in 1999 when a Vietnamese refugee family moves to Sorrento or settles in Sorrento, and it changes things up in the area because it is quite a white predominant area. I am really quite excited to read this because my dad is of refugee background. He did have to settle here in Australia. We live in a very Asian predominant area where a lot of the people here are from refugee backgrounds as well, so it'd be interesting to see what the scenarios and the setup is like without that context, if that makes any sense. I have heard good things about this though, so I am really excited to get into it. Moving on, and I got myself 2 books from Booktopia. They're actually quite new releases. The first one being The Astonishing Colour of After by Emily X.R.Pan. So this is a person of colour own voice book. It follows a girl named Lee. After her mother dies from suicide, she gets a note, and from there she kind of starts to understand what and why her mum did what she did. There's a fantasy element to it because she meets up with the bird and follows the bird to Taiwan where she meets her grandparents, which I think is quite interesting because it brings in or weaves in that kind of mythology and, you know, cultural belief in there, which is why I picked this one up. And this is probably one of my most anticipated reads for 2020. I've spoken about it countless of times on this channel, and it is A Song of Wraths and Ruins by Roseanne A. Brown. I'm sure everyone knows about it. I picked up the hardcover, which is rare for me because I don't actually buy hardcover books. I'm not a huge fan of them, but this is gorgeous. And in Australia, because we've got delays in publications, a lot of the new books are only available in hardcover. They are quite expensive. But I was really happy that Booktopia had it because I think a lot of other stores in Australia won't have them until this end of this month, I would say, or like early next month. I have started it, but essentially it weaves in African folklore mythology to tell a story between 2 main characters one who is a princess and the other one who is a refugee background, and how they're set out to basically kill each other in order to save the thing that they love, which I love. When they meet each other, obviously they get to know each other and question what they need to do. So yeah, I have high expectations for this, but from what I've heard, I know I won't be disappointed. Again, this cover is absolutely chef's kisses. I recently discovered a publishing company slash bookstore, online bookstore called Magabala Books, and I really hope I pronounced that correctly. It is a Indigenous Australian focused publishing company, so they publish Aboriginal work, non-fiction, fiction, and focus on Aboriginal authors and whatnot. So I ended up browsing their collection and I bought My Father's Shadow by Jannali Jones. This is a YA fictional story where a girl ends up being woken up by her mum in the middle of the night to escape. Her dad's gone, they don't know where he is, she keeps thinking that he's going to come back, and then she starts to realise that there are some things that she didn't know, and she soon learns them. I'm really intrigued to see what the mystery side of this is, but also I guess the cultural inclusions in terms of being from an Indigenous family, the beliefs and the values that they have. I would love to read more from Indigenous authors as well, so I'm really excited to see what else the publishing company has on their website, but I'll leave a link to their website down below if you are interested. If you've watched my previous book haul video, I actually did one for remainder books, which basically are books that are left on the shelf for quite a while and then they don't get sold, so then they get sold to this bookstore where they will mark them down in prices. This one here is The Good Luck Girls by Nicole Davis. It has an element of fantasy in there, follows 5 different girls as they are coming out or escaping slavery. One of the girls accidentally kills a man and they all have to bind together to help protect that one girl. We next have The Girl Who Raced Fairyland All the Way Home by Catherynne and Valente. This is the 5th book in the Fairyland series by her. It is a middle grade novel, follows a girl named September as she discovers Fairyland and then builds relationships, friendships, connections with the land, and pretty much goes on journeys to save Fairyland. I have book 1, 2 and 3 here. I don't have book 4, but I bought this anyways because it was affordable, and I will chase down book 4 to continue the series. I absolutely love this series, the modern day fairy tale that Catherynne and Valente has to deliver. Exceptional writing, the characters are so memorable. The fact that I still remember September now, and I read the first book probably 8 years ago, I would have to say, is quite impressive. This is the second book in Renee Ahdieh's series, and I'm fairly sure the series is called... Okay, the first book is called Flame in the Mist. Yeah, so the first book is called Flame in the Mist, which I already have. I haven't read it yet, but I do really like Renee Ahdieh's writing because I've read her other series, The Rose and the Dagger. Or The Wrath and the Dawn, that's what it's called. Wow, my brain right now. So yeah, I got the second book as well just to motivate myself to get to the first book. This is a rather exciting book as well, and it is The Black Flamingo by Atta. I'm sure a lot of people would know about this already, but it follows the story of a transsexual black male. I have seen Monty's review on this. If you haven't checked out his channel, please do, because I love his reviews. Like, I haven't read a book with this kind of theme and a main character who's transsexual before as well. And then the cover itself is gorgeous. And lastly, I got Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This is the first book in her series Serpent and Dove. It is a new release. I don't know anything about it, which is great, but it is a fantasy YA series that's about witches, basically, which I haven't read anything about witches in a long time, so that will be interesting. And then the last 3 books that we have here I just recently purchased. Also, someone's doing a U-turn in my driveway and my blinds are open so they can see exactly what I'm doing right now. Yeah, the last 3 books that I just purchased I got yesterday in the mail. They're from Dimmix and they were doing a deal 3 for 2. I am exceptionally excited to have gotten The Coconut Children by Vivian Pham in my hands. I only recently just found out about this, but it is from an Australian born Vietnamese author, which one makes this ultra special for me because I haven't read a lot of books from a Vietnamese author or Vietnamese background author. It is set in Australia in a suburb in Sydney. Oh no, in a suburb in New South Wales called Cabramatta. That's right. And Cabramatta is very similar to the suburb that I currently live in. Most, if not all, of the Vietnamese refugees that came over from the war started to move into Cabramatta and reside there. If you're from Australia, you would definitely have heard of Cabramatta, the rather tumultuous, if not tumultuous, yes, tumultuous, if not, I would say eclectic makeup of it, and the stories behind suburb and what it's become now. In particular with The Coconut Children, it is a coming of age story following a first generation Australian born Vietnamese background character by the name of Sunny, as she is growing up in the 90s in Cabramatta, you know, going through high school, what it's like living through this era, you know, all of the different elements and aspects that I definitely would have experienced as well. Although I'll bet I grew up in the later half of the 90s. But yeah, I am really excited to see what Vivian Pham has included in here. I also picked up The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This is a sci-fi new release. I've heard loads about it. I don't really know much about it, but I do know that Reagan of Peruse Project absolutely loved it, and I always trust her recommendations, so I picked this up blindly and hopefully I like it as well. I also haven't read a lot of sci-fi in a while, so this is going to be a fresh change. And lastly, everyone would have already heard about this. This is Sarah J. Maas's Crescent City, the first book in House of Earth and Blood. It is adult fantasy rather than YA fantasy. I bought into the hype. That's pretty much why I picked this up. I didn't particularly like the A Court of Thorn Roses series. I DNF'd that. I haven't finished a Throne of Glass series, but I guess I'm gonna get back into Sarah J. Maas by tackling this rather gigantic book, pretty much. But those are all the books that I purchased for the month of July, essentially. I am really excited about the books that I bought and to get into them. I also made a conscious effort to diversify the books that I bought instead of just following along with what I am comfortable with. I think that's about it. Let me know what books you have purchased for this month in the comments down below. If you've read any of the books that I have hauled and what you thought about them. I hope you guys are taking care and staying safe as always, and that you enjoy the rest of your week. I'm filming this on Thursday, yeah. So I hope you enjoy your week and your weekend. Bye!